Funding for the production of Louisiana, the State We're In, is provided in part by the Ziegler Foundation of Jennings and Gulf States Utilities, helping Louisiana bridge the gap to our energy future.
Coming up next on Louisiana, the State We're In, a complete wrap-up of the Jimmy Swaggart affair, including an interview with the minister's father on his thoughts about the controversy. We have a report on Governor-elect Buddy Roemer's appearance at an educational forum in Lafayette, and a story about a thriving new industry in North Louisiana, catfish processing. Good evening, and welcome to another edition of Louisiana, the State We're In. I'm your new host, Ken Lormand. Also on tonight's broadcast, we'll have a visit with outgoing Governor Edwin Edwards at his hunting ranch in Texas. But first, topping the news this week in Louisiana was the controversy surrounding TV evangelist Jimmy Swaggart of Baton Rouge. The State District Council for the Assemblies of God met this week in Alexandria to hand down recommendations for Swaggart's rehabilitation for his admitted sins. The National Board of the church's headquarters in Springfield, Missouri, voted today to take no action on the State Council's recommendation and sent the matter back to Alexandria for reconsideration. Roger Sockman has a report on the events leading up to this latest action and a background look at the Reverend Jimmy Swaggart.
It was last week the Assemblies of God office reported they were reviewing allegations of misconduct by Reverend Swaggart involving a prostitute on Airline Highway in New Orleans. Those accusations of sexual activities reportedly came from Reverend Marvin Gorman of New Orleans, who was ousted by the church 2 years ago. This past Sunday, Swaggart went before a capacity audience of 7,500 worshipers at his ministry headquarters in Baton Rouge and on national TV to admit his guilt.
You that are nameless, most I will never be able to see you except by faith. I have sinned against you. I beg you, forgive me. I say unto you that watch me today, through his mercy, his grace, and his love, the sin of which I speak is not a present sin, it is a past sin.
Swaggart vowed his ministry and Bible college would continue without his presence in the pulpit. The complex is of great value to the Baton Rouge economy as the ministry employs 1,200 people and pumps millions of dollars a year into local motels, restaurants, and shopping centers when camp meetings and conferences are held at the worship center. The construction of a new dormitory for the Bible college is the only major building project in the capital city right now. Plans call for the completion of that structure. On Monday, Swaggart met with the executive board of the Louisiana District Council here at the state headquarters in Alexandria. The meeting lasted several hours. The event was covered by news media from all over the country, including all 4 of the television networks, television stations from throughout the state, and newspapers and magazines from all over Louisiana as well. In fact, there were so many media people that the Alexandria Police Department had to post a guard at the entrance to the building, and a barrier was put up to keep reporters away. Reverend Swaggart and his wife Frances, who is the chief operations administrator for the ministry, flew from Baton Rouge in the minister's private plane to attend a hearing with the state executive presbytery. After a 9.5-hour meeting, Swaggart and his wife left without making a statement to reporters. District Superintendent Cecil Janway of the Assemblies of God met with the media late Monday night to outline the action taken against the TV minister.
Brother Swaggart will be required to refrain from preaching for a minimum of 3 months, except in fulfillment of present commitments involving foreign governments during that period. During the time of rehabilitation, Brother Swaggart will be relieved of his duties as co-pastor of Family Worship Center, retaining the right to preach in the Family Worship Center after the period described in item number 2.
Many close to Swaggart believe it will take longer than the 3 months he'll be away from his Baton Rouge church to regain his popularity he once had. His TV show, seen by the most of any of the TV evangelists in this country, has already been removed from the airways of the Christian Broadcasting Network, the PTL Club, several local TV stations, and in some countries. An assistant professor of religion at LSU, who's been studying the TV evangelism movement, Dr. John Carroll, says this chain of unfortunate events for Swaggart will have an impact on some of his followers and affect the economic future in Louisiana.
I would, in fact, expect that he will rebound. I, on the other hand, doubt very much that he'll ever be able to achieve the level of success that he has had. I think he's been struggling in the last few months, generating revenue, and this is going to continue. Some of the support he might have gotten is going to evaporate now. So he's going to have to work harder. Part of it, I think, people are going to be listening to see if his message, after he comes back, his post-restoration message, if it shows that he's learned something, if there's a new dose of compassion and of understanding for others that wasn't there before.
It was here in Ferriday where Reverend Swaggart, along with his 2 cousins, singers Jerry Lee Lewis and Mickey Gilley, were all raised. Jimmy Lee, as he is known here in the community, was primarily influenced in his preaching career by his father, the Reverend W.L. Swaggart. His father told us in an interview, along with other friends and relatives that we talked to, that it was not of his son's character to do the sins that he admitted to on TV this past Sunday.
Well, the biggest thing that I see, he needs rest. And so when your body is worn out, you're tired, you can't think. You know what I'm talking about. I imagine both of you've been that way. Yeah. So therefore, I think that's the biggest factor. He needs rest and plenty of it right now. And he doesn't need to be bothered. Yeah. You know.
You think he can bounce back from all this?
I think so. I think so. Because I've had people calling me from Monroe, different places, and tell Jimmy I'm with him. Tell Jimmy I'm with him. Some that never did support, say I'm going to support now. See? Otherwise, I think they saw his spirit last Sunday when he was in the service, and many came out believing different. I'm not saying for the last few days, I'm saying for the last few years, right. You see.
Swaggart's father says he hasn't seen his son since the controversy broke, and he doesn't plan to until things settle down. Doris Poole, who owns a dress shop in Ferriday, went to grade school and high school with Reverend Swaggart just across the street from her store. She feels her former classmate was set up by an unnamed former Assemblies of God minister who was trying to get revenge on Swaggart.
And this man has a vendetta against Jimmy Lee because maybe last year, year before, I've forgotten exactly when, he was to speak in Louisiana to some of the ministers, and Jimmy Lee wrote a letter and told him that he would not be appropriate, he should not be an appropriate speaker, and this is really a vendetta, we believe, against Jimmy Lee. But people in the outside world don't understand it, but we don't understand it, we really don't, because it's out of character for Jimmy Lee. You know, some of the others could believe it, but it's hard, it's very hard.
Jimmy Swaggart grew up in a small house in Ferriday that has since been torn down. He attended church a few blocks away at the Ferriday First Assembly of God church that his father helped start. Swaggart's cousin, Frankie Jean Terrell, says he was called to be a minister when he was 8 years old. Mrs. Terrell, whose brother is rock and roll pioneer Jerry Lee Lewis, says her cousin Jimmy, brother Jerry Lee, and country music singer Mickey Gilley got together on several occasions to pound out songs on the family piano. Swaggart had a chance to become a professional musician, but chose a career in the ministry instead. She recalled one story where Jerry Lee got his cousin Jimmy blamed for a schoolboy prank he actually didn't do.
Jerry confessed to Jimmy about 3 months back, or maybe my timing may be a little off, it's not important. He said, "Jimmy, I want you to know the time that we stole the basketballs from Ferriday High School." Jimmy said, "Yes." Jimmy was coming back to the warehouse where they had hidden the basketballs. He wanted to return them. In the meanwhile, Jerry Lee had stolen the basketballs from Jimmy. And God only knows what happened to the basketballs. But anyway, Jerry finally confessed to Jimmy. He said, "I stole those basketballs from you, Jimmy, and I'm so sorry. It's bothered me all these years." Jimmy just laughed. He said, "Well, I forgive you." But Jimmy wanted to do the right thing.
The mayor of Ferriday, Sammy Davis Jr., is a longtime friend of Swaggart's. He remembers playing with him as a boy during a few occasions. Mayor Davis says no matter what sin Swaggart has done and admitted to, he'll always be welcome back to his hometown of Ferriday when he returns.
So if he comes back to Ferriday, I'm sure that he's going to be welcomed by some of us. He's going to be scorned by some of us. But I don't care how it goes. He's from this city, and as far as I'm concerned, he's still a citizen of this place. And I'll welcome him because what he did, he and God had to get that together, not Sammy Davis. And I respect the man greatly. You know, his wife there and his kids there, they have suffered. And I think that we need to pray with them and hope that they can stay with him until he gets this thing over.
We have repeatedly asked Reverend Swaggart's office for an interview. However, they have declined all requests.
The elementary education program at the Jimmy Swaggart Bible College in Baton Rouge has been given official approval by the State Education Board. This means that graduates of the college will be allowed to teach grade school in Louisiana.
Governor-elect Buddy Roemer named 5 members of his cabinet this week, including his secretaries of Labor, Natural Resources, and Environmental Quality. Roemer has picked 38-year-old Lafayette businesswoman Phyllis Mouton to be his labor secretary. Mouton serves on Roemer's Economic Development Advisory Panel, as well as the board of the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. 59-year-old Raymond Stevens will be Roemer's secretary of the Department of Natural Resources. Stevens is an independent petroleum geologist and a consulting professor at the University of New Orleans. Paul Temple is Roemer's choice to head up the Department of Environmental Quality. The 47-year-old Temple is currently associate professor at the Institute of Environmental Studies at LSU and heads up Roemer's transition panel on the environment. Roemer also selected Virginia Van Sickle as his secretary of the Wildlife and Fisheries Department. The 37-year-old Van Sickle is assistant director of the Louisiana Geological Survey at LSU and a former deputy secretary of marine biology for Wildlife and Fisheries. The 5th cabinet member named this week was 40-year-old Arnold Broussard, Roemer's Secretary of Revenue and Taxation. Broussard is a businessman and financial consultant in New Orleans. He also served as executive assistant to former New Orleans Mayor Dutch Montreal from 1978 to 1983. Roemer still has several top posts to fill in his administration, including the secretaries of the Departments of Health and Human Resources, Corrections, and Commerce. Nearly 2,000 people crowded into a high school auditorium in Lafayette this week to show their support for education in Louisiana. Those attending the meeting, the second of 7 around the state, received a pledge from Governor-elect Buddy Roemer to funnel more money to Louisiana classrooms.
Our state has a commitment, regardless of the parish, for certain items that are fundamental to quality. That includes, but is not limited to, teacher evaluation and teacher pay.
However, amongst educators, there is growing concern about tying pay raises to teacher evaluations.
Well, of course, we think that teacher evaluation, the purpose of it should be to improve the quality of instruction. So we are very strongly in favor of a good evaluation procedure, as long as the people who are doing the evaluation are trained and as long as they are providing for professional staff development to correct any deficiencies they may find. But we do have a problem with merit pay being projected again under a different name and under a different label, because pay for performance is really another way to say that a few teachers will be rewarded, but the rest of the teachers will be left out.
Chairman Colleen Andrus of Roemer's Education Transition Panel is confident that teacher evaluation can be a plus for educators.
Nationwide, there's been all kinds of studies done. If we can get the right process in place and pilot it and make sure that it works for Louisiana, I don't think you're going to see major problems with it. It's the concern that it wouldn't be done fairly. And to me, this will be of great benefit to teachers. Just like there was a lot of argument about testing and about a lot of other areas. But once we see that something works, I've seen that our teachers are very, very fair and open about things.
Governor-elect Roemer told the large crowd that he doesn't have a plan etched in stone at this time. Rather, he's holding forums like the one in Lafayette to both listen and learn.
I've talked about broad outlines of what I think we're going to end up doing. Teacher pay and teacher evaluation. I was very honest about that when I ran, wasn't I? There should be nobody fooled on that. We're going to do something like that. Help me do it right. Classroom sizes, principal training, trying to bring our schools home again, getting state funding clean and right, investing more money in our students, taking money out of overhead and put it in the classroom.
The education team is holding statewide meetings to allow the governor-elect to hear from the people of Louisiana. And not just parents and teachers. In Lafayette, 6th grader Ernest Carmu shared his concerns with Roemer.
What will you do about the overcrowding in classrooms?
Ernest, I don't have all the answers for you, but I'm telling you, if we've got classrooms that have too many students in them, we're going to change that, and we'll do it in any one of 4 or 5 ways. Better funding, better participation by parents, more healthy attitudes on the part of the community, a definition of the state responsibility, and laws that limit the number of students per teacher.
There are still 3 more public hearings on education remaining. Monday of next week, Roemer's transition panel holds forums at the New Orleans Convention Center at 4 and 7. Then Tuesday, it's on to Lake Charles for a meeting at Boston High School at 6 p.m. And Thursday at 6:30, the group holds its final public gathering at Bolton High School in Alexandria. The governor-elect is expected to speak at all of the forums.
The State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education has voted to require all teacher applicants to be fingerprinted and have a criminal background check done before being hired.
A ban went into effect last week off Louisiana waters that prohibits catching redfish, either by recreational or commercial fishermen. This, of course, means when you buy redfish in a restaurant or store in the next few weeks, you'll be paying a premium price. Another type of Louisiana fish, however, that is in abundance right now is catfish. Roger Sockman has a story about a new catfish processing plant in North Louisiana.
This is Louisiana's newest, most modern, and fastest growing catfish processing plant in the state. It's called Louisiana Catfish. It's only been open for about 6 weeks. It's located right outside of Wisner in Franklin Parish. Let's go inside and see what a catfish processing plant looks like. The catfish are brought to the facility in special trucks and then weighed. They're dumped into a holding area until ready for processing. At that time, the fish are brought inside the facility on a conveyor belt where they are skinned and cleaned. From here, the catfish are either sent to an area where they are prepared to be shipped out whole or for fillet cooking. The fish are trucked to wholesalers in either Shreveport or Dallas in 15 or 30-pound boxes. All of the packing is done right here in the plant. But before the catfish leave, they are checked for taste, smell, and quality by 2 supervisors at the facility, Sue Sykes and Joyce Weeks. When you get home at night, do you ever want to eat catfish again?
Most definitely. This doesn't make it any less flavorful. It's good 3 or 4 times a week at least at home.
Even after looking at catfish all day long?
Even after looking at catfish all day, it's still good. You can't beat these farm-raised catfish for flavor.
It took 2 years to make the processing plant a reality. The facility now processes about 60,000 pounds of fish per week, with plans to increase that to 100,000 pounds in the near future. The ultimate goal is 500,000 pounds after the addition of more equipment. Close to 70 people, mostly women, are employed at Louisiana Catfish now. The president of the plant, Charles Watson, says employment will go up as the demand for the catfish products increase.
But we have acceptance all over the country with catfish now. Northern states, who a few years ago would not buy it, but now there's a good demand for it. And our markets are out there, and we're trying to grow. Mississippi took the ball here about 8 or 10 years ago and just developed an unreal market for fish, and about a third of it sold in Louisiana, and we just feel like that we can get a part of that market and help the folks here in Louisiana have their own product.
The plant was built here in Franklin Parish because this is the heart of catfish farming in the state. Some 7,000 acres of ponds are in the Franklin-Concordia Parish area because of the soil's ability to hold water. Louisiana Catfish is owned by a consortium of 36 stockholders, mostly local catfish farmers, who work together with the Louisiana Department of Agriculture to secure money for a loan to start up the plant. Robert Farrington is one of those farmers. Farrington, who lives just a couple of miles away, says he converted all of his farmland to catfish ponds when the economy got bad with traditional farming.
We can't produce enough to meet demand today. Processing here today and sales are strong. Fish production is a low side of the chain today, way I see it. We need at least 5 more thousand acres of water to meet the demands of our plant and the existing plants in this area.
In an effort to build more catfish farms and ponds, the Louisiana Department of Agriculture is attempting to match up potential farmers and bankers along with landowners to help them get started in the business. State and federal loans are also being secured to construct new catfish ponds in that area of the state. In just over 2 weeks, Edwin Edwards' third term as governor will come to an end. Edwards will likely spend plenty of time at his Texas ranch after Buddy Roemer takes over state government March 14th. He recently gave reporters a chance to view his Texas hideaway, and Beth Courtney, who's been covering Edwards since 1972, was there and has this report.
Good morning. Sorry I'm late. The weather was bad.
This is where Governor Edwin Edwards goes much of the time when he's out of the state and unavailable for comment. He's at the ranch in West Texas Hill Country, about 120 miles from San Antonio. This 1,500-acre spread has about 60 head of cattle, an attractive but modest ranch house, and is currently on the market for $1.6 million. Edwards has owned at one time or another 4 different ranches in Texas. The attraction for Edwards is hunting, something he enjoys doing with friends such as Wayne Ray, an unofficial aide who is currently under federal indictment. Edwards also enjoys being away from the burdens of government and the attention of reporters. But on this day, Edwards issued an open invitation to the media to visit, take pictures, and enjoy some barbecue.
What are you cooking, Governor?
Ribs, chicken, sausage, and brisket. Okay, let's go eat.
Well, it was definitely home on the range with Edwin Edwards at his ranch in Texas as he was relaxed and reflective, talking with reporters about the highs and lows of his political career. But it was certain that Edwin Edwards, the politician, is not retiring.
I will be practicing law and doing some consulting, and I will be watching the political scene. It's in my blood and part of my life. And while I do not intend to interfere or to try to suggest what should or should not be done, I will watch and see. And as I said 8 years ago when I left, if circumstances change and people are happy with the governor and it appears that he has retained his popularity and served the citizens of the state, I will do what everybody else does. I will applaud and say, thank goodness it happened. If on the other hand it doesn't, then I'm going to take a look at the situation 3 years from now.
Later in the day, Edwards did a series of interviews with reporters and talked about leaving office and his role in Louisiana's history.
Any personal feelings of regret?
Certainly, I'm leaving that which I loved most to do in life, and that is to serve the public. On the other hand, I know that all things come to an end, whether they're good or bad, and it's something that I'm perfectly willing to accept and understand.
Are you afraid that the future generations are going to get a skewed view of Edwin Edwards?
I haven't been warring with the media. I've been defending myself and trying to correct the record and set matters straight. My problems have not been with most of the working press, who by and large are honorable people and do their jobs. I have no concern at all about the truth. As long as the truth is spoken or written, that's fine with me. I'll live and die with it. My concern has been with the publishers and editors of the major newspapers who have tried to mold policy to their own thinking without a real concern for the needs of the people of the state of Louisiana. Having said that, I certainly would not want to be judged 10 years from now or 50 years from now based upon what people read in the newspapers, because it does not accurately portray Edwin Edwards as a man or as a public servant. But third, I console myself when I realized that the press was more antagonistic towards Huey Long at the time he was governor than they've been to me, as bad as they have been to me. Yet people do not remember him for the critical things the press said about him, because then as now they were wrong. He was right and they were wrong. You know, I was criticized when I wanted to keep the Saints in New Orleans. It turned out I was right. I was criticized when I wanted to keep the World's Fair open. It turned out I was right and they were wrong. I was criticized when I wanted to build another bridge in New Orleans. It turned out I was right and they were wrong. I was criticized when I wanted to change the method of collecting taxes on oil by the same people. I was criticized when I advocated a lottery. It turns out sooner or later we're going to have a lottery. It's unfortunate we didn't have it when I first advocated it. We would be a lot better off today. Finally, I certainly would want people to remember me as a person who came from a very humble and poor background and who never forgot his origins, and therefore empathize with and understood and sympathize with other people who are having a hard time making it. I'm talking about single mothers and single fathers who have a difficult time bringing their children up, and those aged people, who 25 to 30,000 of them in nursing homes that are lonely and scared and by themselves and have no one to turn to except the staff at the nursing home to help them get by from day to day and to keep them out of pain and to provide some measure of hope and joy for them in the last years of their life.
Well, on March 14th, when you're no longer governor, the state will have a bond rating worse than Puerto Rico. It'll be $700 million in debt. We'll have the highest unemployment in the country. What do you feel?
Very sad. I see especially sad because it wasn't necessary.
Edwards says he hopes Buddy Roemer succeeds as governor. On the other hand, if he doesn't, Edwards says the people might give him another opportunity. In any case, despite his affection for Western scenery, Edwards will not be riding into the sunset as this political drama ends on March 14th.
That's our show for this week. Thanks for watching. Next week, we'll have a preview of the Super Tuesday presidential primary and a look at that hotly contested 4th Congressional District race in Northwest Louisiana. Till then, have a good evening.
Funding for the production of Louisiana, the State We're In, is provided in part by the Ziegler Foundation of Jennings and Gulf States Utilities, helping Louisiana bridge the gap to our energy future. Funding for the production of Louisiana, the State We're In, is provided in part by the Ziegler Foundation of Jennings and Gulf States Utilities, helping Louisiana bridge the gap to our energy future.
Coming up next on Louisiana, the State We're In, presidential politics comes to Louisiana as this state prepares for the Super Tuesday presidential primary. A look at the candidates who want to replace Buddy Roemer as this state's 4th District Congressman. And the State Ethics Commission rules